kid in my life.
Pallbearers? So I'm going to say a few words and then you're going to talk. You didn't tell me what you're going to say. So.
But I was there for the whole meeting.
I know, I heard.
None of it.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to tell your story about Pesach too, by the way. Just a little.
I don't. Yeah. Tell everyone.
Okay. Okay. Good. You're a pallbearer. Here we go. And you should stand on that side, Richard. Yeah.
Everyone can start.
Hey, Doc. Hesaena el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Hesaena el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. Aiten lamod raglecha ayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo ishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yeminecha. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yeminecha. Yom HaShemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzecha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Adonai yishmor tzecha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Al mekoma tavo v'shalom. Shir LaMa'alot, a song for those who ascend. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming, now and forever. May our beloved go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim paulo kichol rachab mishpat el emunah v'einav el tzadik v'yashar hu. Tzadik atah Adonai lamidu lechayot asher biyadcha pigadon kol ruchot chalila lichazirchot nedalimchot v'yiyu nainech v'rachimim aleinu kifekuchot ki lecha Adon harachamim v'haslichot Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevorach Vehu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchid v'hirba lashiva po v'lo yirko chamato v'yashov he'afar al haaretz she'aya ve'aruach tashuv el Elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May Cookie's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. And God, Adonai, send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. Thank you everyone for being here. Whether you're here with us at the cemetery or watching us online, thank you. As we have come together to join our hearts together and honor and say goodbye to Rochelle, Cookie, Elkun. Rochel Chana bat Lazer Udvora, the daughter of Lou Blank and Debbie Harris, Zichronam Livracha, both of blessed memory. Cookie passed away Friday morning, the third day in the Hebrew month of Av. She was 75. She will be lovingly missed by her sister and brother-in-law, Sheila and Sheldon, and by a loving extended family with nieces and nephew, Barbara, Michelle, and Richard and their families, as well as many cousins, all who adored their beloved aunt and cousin Cookie. She was predeceased by her parents, Lou and Debbie Blank. Rochelle Blank was born in Winnipeg and grew up in West Kildonan in the North End with a very typical childhood of the time. She went to Victory School and Edmund Partridge and West Kildonan Collegiate. Her parents were both born in Winnipeg, and even her grandmother on the Harris side of the family was born in Winnipeg, making her a third-generation Winnipegger. Quite unusual at the time for someone born in 1945. She was Debbie and Lou's second child, their second daughter. A beautiful, adorable little baby with dimples on both sides of her face, who learned quite quickly that all she needed to do was smile and show those dimples, and she got pretty much whatever she wanted. Her parents named her Rochelle, but it was her nickname, given to her pretty randomly by her older sister Sheila, that stuck, and by which she was known through her life. In fact, that name, Cookie, became almost like a trademark for her, especially when she would sign it on cards and letters. That signature embodied so much of her special nature and character, as she would turn the two O's in Cookie into beautiful cartoon eyes, decorated with lavish eyelashes and equipped with a smile drawn underneath the eyes. The whole thing, of course, written so perfectly and artfully in her distinctive and gorgeous handwriting. That signature in many ways captured so much of Cookie's essence, her creativity, her passion, her fun-loving nature, her love of art and beauty, as well as a fondness for all things quirky, and of course her unmistakable flair for fashion. Cookie was a very private person. Throughout her life, kept many things to herself, but there were other elements of the way she lived that revealed parts of her character and personality. For example, her apartment. The way she decorated it, the art on the walls, the furniture, even the light fixtures she chose, and her collection of fancy china and elegant glassware, even the way her apartment smelled. It was all like something right out of Vogue magazine. Everything the top quality, the best of the best, and it all reflected her, beautiful and elegant, immaculately clean and organized. Cookie was most certainly fastidious. And then there's more you would learn about her if you ever saw her drive her car back in the 70s. Custom made in Detroit, a 1972 Grand Prix with honeycomb hubcaps. Maybe you'd see her with the windows rolled down, blaring music and driving fast. That car filled in more of the details about what made Cookie so special. Someone who was truly fun and fun-loving, outgoing, a spitfire. She knew what she liked, and she often didn't stop until she got what she wanted. She was independent. She was strong-minded. That car also gave a bit of a window into Cookie's past. When she got married young and moved to the United States, following her husband at the time to Chicago and to Detroit, as he was studying to become a doctor. She was resourceful. She got a job for herself as a medical secretary at Billings Hospital in Chicago, training that proved quite helpful years later back in Winnipeg when she worked for 10 years as a medical researcher for Ipsos Reid. But after 7 years south of the border, and getting a little too close for comfort to some of the riots going in Chicago at the time, she returned to Winnipeg to be close to family. I have to admit, Cookie and I never met, but after speaking with her family and hearing some of the stories, I especially would have liked to have met her when she was younger, when she was often stopped on the street and asked for autographs, mistaken for a movie star. I'm told that she was, in her youth, beautiful, almost like a cross between Audrey Hepburn and Sophia Loren, and in many ways lived her life like a movie star with extravagant and beautiful taste. After all, this was a lady who loved her dog, a miniature long-haired Dachshund, and used to carry that dog around in her purse. That is someone fancy. Someone who loved to travel, Florida especially, where she had many memories with her mom, but also Palm Springs, Aruba. Someone who loved good food, someone who loved to shop, so much that if she found something she liked, she didn't just buy one, she got 10. In fact, Cookie Elkun was so beautiful, so striking, that many years ago, at a Pesach family Seder, her nephew Richard, just 6 years old at the time, proclaimed for everyone to hear that no man would be good enough to marry Auntie Cookie, because he was going to marry her. Of all of her passions and of all of her loves, the top of the list was most certainly family. She was a devoted daughter. When Debbie, her mother, had a stroke, Cookie was the one who moved into Debbie's apartment in the North End to take care of her. She was a devoted sister. She and Sheila spoke on the phone every single day, and shared the kind of unconditional love that it didn't matter if there were arguments or disagreements or if tempers flared, their bond could never be broken. The very next day, they'd be right back on the phone as if nothing had happened. And she was most certainly adored as an aunt by Barbara, Michelle, and Richard. Sleepovers at her apartment were one of the most looked forward to occasions for her nieces and nephew. They knew that had promised meals out, gifts of all kind, anything they wanted, where Aunt Cookie's generosity was on full display, and not to mention getting to spend time in that incredible apartment. Everything for them about spending time with Cookie was truly special. In the last act of her life, it could be said that Cookie lost a little bit of her flair and a little bit of her zest for life. She was never quite the same after her mother, Debbie, passed over 20 years ago. And then, especially in more recent times, when her health declined, especially in the last month after she learned of her terminal diagnosis. But today, and going forward, it is not this last act or this last month that we will dwell on or remember, but really, the parts of Cookie's life that we will remember will be what we've talked about so far. A beautiful, elegant, fun-loving woman, a good-natured person who had so much to give, even when she chose to keep some things to herself. In Jewish tradition, we say, death is better than an eternal sickness, and eternal rest is better than a life of pain. We hope, we pray that Cookie is now at peace, and that in time, healing and peace will come to those who knew her and loved her for who she most certainly was. It is my honor now to call up Richard, who's going to share a few more memories and a few more words to continue eulogizing his aunt. Of course.
I never once called her Rochelle. The cook, Cookie, and most of my life, Auntie Cookie. My great Auntie Cookie. Always alive, as has been mentioned. My earliest memories are of this magnetic presence arriving in a silvery green car with honeycomb wheels. I believe it was a 71 Pontiac Grand Prix. Anyways, Cookie loved this car, and they were a perfect match. And you can say it again. Unique, elegant, full of energy. Always driving defensively, sipping on a can of Diet Sprite, smoking De Maurier Extra Milds in the silver pack. As kids growing up, she loved to make us happy. She was our celebrity. She'd put butter on a peanut butter and jam sandwich, surprise us with cool toys, and best of all, at least for me, swear. Being with her was guaranteed entertainment. We were fortunate to be able to spend lots of time together, always talking. I know all of us can hear right now in our heads. I don't even have to dramatically pause about that. I know you know that. And if you were lucky enough to know her, then you knew her. Very loyal, very resilient. I could probably talk about Cookie for much longer than we have time, but I'll finish up or try to finish up with this. About a month ago, we were talking like we would. We'd talk on the phone every other month for about an hour or so. This was never planned. I never woke up saying I got to talk to Cookie. It just happened. We would talk, and it would be an hour, 2 hours. And it was never planned. So this happened more and more over the last 10 years. Or I'd be driving my bike, going down Corden or Grant, and I'd think about if she needed something, I'd call, sometimes bring her stuff. The last few months, though, not really that often, but if it did, it would be usually 8 fresh chicken fingers from Safeway and Sprite Zero. Anyways, we were talking, and somehow, as it happens in conversations, it went to Cookie telling me how what we were talking about reminded her of her dad. And she described him coming out from the garage at their place on Perth Avenue with a couple of 2x4s. And this was to bring them into the bathtub of the house that he'd fill up with hot water, wait a little bit until they were flexible enough to bend, and eventually this became a boat that they used at Winnipeg Beach. But the way that she described it to me a month ago in the screening room or outside of our house, like in this screening area, which sort of reminded me of the cottage, I said to her, I can see him as you're talking about it. I can see what you're talking about. And it really struck me. And, you know, in this complicated inventory of memories, this stands out because it's obviously the most recent, but this idea that he was making a boat really struck me. So everybody today, you give your condolences, but I was saying, because we had such deep relationships, everybody that knew her, it doesn't feel like there's like a separation. And we know, because of this idea, to me, this boat, that she's safe. And we love her. And we have lots of recordings of her voice. And she's with us forever. Thank God.
Thank you, Richard. Beautiful. I'll offer one more prayer before it's my honor to chant the Al-Malei Rahim, the memorial prayer. Eternal God, Master of Mercy, give us the gift of remembering. May our memories of Cookie be tender and true, undiminished by time. Let us recall her and love her as she was. Shelter us with the gift of tears. Let us express our sense of loss, our sorrow, our pain, as well as our love, and even words unspoken. Bless us with the gift of prayer, that we may face you with an open heart, with trusting faith, unembarrassed and unashamed. Strengthen us with the gift of hope, that we may always believe in the beauty of life, the power of goodness, and the right to joy. May we surrender our being and the soul of our beloved Cookie to your all-knowing compassion. El-Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromi, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Rochel Chana Bat Lezer Dvora Shehalcha Leolama, Began, Dente Menuchata, Anabal Harachamim, Hastirea Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim, Utzror Bitzror HaChaim, En Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Cookie Elkun, Rochel Chana Bat Lezer Udvora, the daughter of Lou and Debbie, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory, for she has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us again say, Amen. It's an honor to officiate this service for Cookie and for all of you. Thank you again to everyone who was able to be here. I know the family appreciates it very much. And for everyone who couldn't but is tuned in during these strange times when so many of us are forced to be apart, but still, through technology, we're able to be together. And I know that if you continue to send messages, emails, texts, phone calls, we still can't have a proper Shiva or even a proper meal of consolation afterwards like we used to in times before this pandemic. But all of the words convey everyone's presence, and I know that Sheila and Sheldon and everyone really appreciate from all of these shows of love and support. So please, especially over this very first week, this difficult week of the Shiva, continue to send your messages, continue to comfort the mourners. With that in mind, to the mourners we say, in Hebrew, Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled among those in our community who are in mourning or who have ever been in mourning. Our ceremony this afternoon, this morning actually, concludes with the familiar time-honored tradition of shoveling dirt into the grave. In Jewish tradition, we view the funeral as an opportunity to care for our loved one until the very end, to accompany her to her final resting place, and then as a family and a community to bury her ourselves with our own hands. In Jewish tradition, we believe that this is a powerful extension of the mitzvah, the commandment, the selfless righteous act to care for a loved one until the end, because we believe our loved ones deserve to be buried by kind, knowing hands, hands that once held their hands. And so I'll invite Sheila and Sheldon and the family to lead us, and then everyone else to participate. There are different customs when it comes to shoveling dirt. Almost everyone pours 3 shovelfuls, but you'll see some people use the front of the shovel, some people use the back of the shovel, some people hand the shovel to the next person, some people return it to the dirt as if reluctant to pass the burden on to the next person. Whatever the custom with which you're familiar is the custom you should embrace. In these times, we encourage people to wear gloves, and we've made gloves available on that post just over there. And if these large shovels, there are shovels on both sides, so people can come from both sides. If these shovels are too large or too overwhelming, there is a bucket just in front of this gentleman here with a small shovel that works in the same way, and you can use that to fulfill this mitzvah. Our custom we try for is to cover the top of the casket with dirt before we turn things over to the gentlemen here who work at the Shared Zedek Cemetery. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. These are the words of Job, the epitome of suffering in biblical and Jewish tradition. Job said, God you give, God you take. Blessed be the name of God. May Cookie's memory be a blessing to all who knew her, as we mark today and going forward that her essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. I turn things over to the family. And thank you again, everyone, for being here for Cookie.
Yeah, makes sense. So I think so right now the plan is if we're in the city around 6:30 or we're doing something after this. We're doing back to shoes. No, zero issues.
I just forgot to mention that after the shoveling, we will conclude with the mourner's Kaddish, so please stay close if you can.
Well, I history around many of those. We went through a couple of logs and major Indian wars
buddy dragged me up to the patio. Had a beer there. And then we went back and had 2 years. But I needed that time. What? Well, here was one. Aaron. He's trying to get his, I think he just got something to do with mortgages as a mortgage broker. So they dangled this position at Jaguar where he was going to be, I forget what the actual title was. Finance manager. Junior finance manager. So he was going to get a percentage of every car sale. Jaguar, Audi, Volvo, Range. So they dangled this position. For whatever reason, the first 3 months he doesn't make any salary just to get this. He had 2 great months in eliminating that position.
Folks, if I may have your attention one last time before we conclude, we will recite now the traditional words of the mourner's Kaddish. Please join with me if you know them. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam U'Lalmei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yithalal Shemei Dekudsha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya b'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all of humanity. And again, let us say, Amen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.